everyone, welcome back to A Town Called Yarn, obviously not a real town. My name's Harrison and this is episode 27 of my Knitting and Crochet podcast, where I talk about knitting and crochet. No prizes for guessing what I was about to say then. This is, like I said, episode 27, first episode of second year of videos. So if you're new here, we've had a small flurry of new subscribers. So if you are new, welcome. Hope you enjoy yourself. If you're new and you haven't subscribed, then that's always an option too. Love you to join us. It's been a weird 2 weeks weather-wise since I last filmed. It kind of got quite cold again and quite rainy, and then it's got really hot and humid over the last couple of days. So today's been quite warm. It's currently 21 degrees. And if you live somewhere in the world that's really hot, that will sound like it's not that hot to you, but it is true about what they say. Hot in the UK is different to hot in other countries. And I don't know why that is. And I also don't live in other countries, nor have I been to that many, so I can't really comment much there. But like I said, if you're a new subscriber, welcome. One thing I have a bit of an apology to make is thank you. If you leave comments on my videos, thank you. I love reading the comments, and I normally love replying to the comments. For some reason, I've just completely forgotten to reply to comments from the last couple of videos. So if you have left a comment, thank you. I'm going to go back in, so I will probably have replied before this video goes up. But I'm not ignoring you. I do normally like to go in the comments. For some reason, the last few weeks have just absolutely gone away with me. The fact it's the 30th of June, no it's not. The fact it's the 30th of May today is wild to me. It feels like it was just March. I don't think April and May really feel like they happened that much. But other than that, should we talk about some knitting / crochet? I do have some crochet actually this week. I have 2 finished objects to show you. I then have 6 whips. 3 of those that were kind of grouped together that I'll talk about in one group, but I do technically have 6 different projects to show you. We will then talk about a few other things. I've got some new yarn in, and I'll talk about some books in that at the end. Kind of usual vibes here. So I have a feeling this might be a bit of a long one. Although I don't know, I'm not a time traveller, so I don't know. So we'll see, but I hope you've got a drink or a project. Actually, it'd be great to know what you do while you're watching these videos, because I knit almost exclusively while watching podcasts. So it'd be interesting to know what you're up to. Do you just like sit and stare at the screen, or do you have something else going on? Let me know, and I promise if you comment, I will reply quicker than a month to 2 weeks after you comment. Although now I've said that as I promise, who knows what will happen, but I'll try my best. Finished objects. I have one that I've not spoken about to you for a while because I said I wasn't going to talk to you about it until I finished it. And that is my Simon shawl. I just held this up for the thumbnail and this camera just does not like the colours in it. There we go. So this is the Simon shawl by Twinset and Purl. It is a knit tip to tip shawl / scarf. Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of another category of thing that it might be. And if you can see, it's knit in 2 colours, and it creates this really fun little detail that kind of puts the 2 colours together. A lot of people do these in much more contrast than I've done. I've obviously done a black and a dark green. This was actually knit for my boyfriend. So this was knit for Tom, and he wanted these colours. He likes darker colours in what he wears, so originally he wanted just a black thing, but I said I'm not going to just knit you a full scarf using black yarn, so we compromised when we added the dark green, and he really, really loves it. It's, like I said, knit tip to tip. I have modified this pattern a little bit. It's knit on 3.5mm needles. Is that true? Yeah. I'm going to go with that. I think it's knit on 3.5mm needles. You'll see it's quite scarf shaped. I've taken out 2 sections. I've taken out one of the increase section and then the alternating decrease section, which means this centre section isn't quite as wide as the pattern calls for. I did that for a couple of reasons. One, I thought I might not have enough yarn. I had less than the recommended yardage. I had about 400 yards of each. I don't know why I'm talking in yards. I don't really know what a yard is. I have about 400 metres of each, and it called for about 500. But I did end up with quite a lot of yarn left over. I still don't think I would have been able to do the full size of it with the amount of yarn I had. But Sorry. But I'm happy with the decision because I'm happy that it's more scarfy. My boyfriend won't wear this like a shawl, he'll wear it wrapped around like a scarf. Let me tell you about the yarn. So this is Knit by Numbers by John Arbon. So it's their 4-ply version of this. You can get it in a DK or a 4-ply. It's their yarn that's, they have like 100 colours of it, and it's all just like gradients of, so you can get lots of different versions of the same colour. The black I know is 01. I think the green is 49. I don't have the label anywhere with me though, but I think that's right. And if it is, love that for me. But that's that really. Like I said, this took me a while. When I first cast on, it flew. There's something about this centre section, just doing those slip stitches, and with it being a 4-ply, it did just kind of feel like it was going to take an age, and it kind of did. What I did, I kind of ended up finishing this in a week. I measured it and I worked out about 10 centimetres of the straight section left to go before I started decreasing. And I just sat down and I had about 3 hours of my evening, and I said, I'm just going to knit on this for 3 hours, and whatever length I get to in that 3 hours, that's how long it's going to be, and then I'll start decreasing. It worked out probably being a bit less than 10 centimetres. Sorry again. Let me take a sip of water. I feel like I've got something in my throat all of a sudden. Probably ended up being around, yeah, probably around the 10 centimetres. I'm not quite sure. But we've ended up with about 150-ish centimetre scarf, which I'm happy with. It's not blocked yet. What I'm going to do is, because this is going to go away for the summer, I'm just going to pack it away and then I'll block it after the summer for my boyfriend to then wear again, just so it's fresh and clean and ready then, rather than blocking it now and then just putting it in a bag. I would really recommend this pattern though, even though I've said that it kind of drags on a little bit. It's also a really it's such a simple pattern that there are some times where this is exactly what you want to knit on. I just kind of didn't. I started this probably at a time where I maybe had like 2 or 3 whips on at the time. And during the process of making this, I just started casting on a lot. So it just became not something I was reaching for, which is why it took a lot longer. It probably took 3 months, maybe even 4 months. I probably started it in February, so probably just under 4 months. But not actually 4 months of knitting, obviously. It was just kind of sat aside for a while. I really love the stitch pattern. I have bought some yarn to make another one of these. Whether I do end up making one for me or not, I'm not quite sure currently. Because I don't want that same thing to happen, so I might do something else with that. I might do another Twinset and Purl pattern, because I really like the construction of this. It's really straightforward. The pattern's really, really well written. And I love it, and I'm glad it's done. It's got a nice I-cord detail on the edge, which I always enjoy. And then it's just quite a simple shape with a fun little Twinset and Purl. This is the first thing I've knit by Twinset and Purl, but I heard about them first from Ruth at Ruth Loves to Knit over on her podcast. And she does loads of Twinset and Purl patterns. I think from seeing what she's knitted of theirs, they're really good at using simple techniques together to make something that's really fun to both knit, but also then to have, which I think is fun from a pattern designer, because sometimes you get people who either make something that's really basic and not that fun to knit, but is really fun to have, or you get people that have something that's really, really fun to knit, but it's like wild at the end and you're never going to wear it. And there's place for all of that. I like knitting all those kinds of projects, but Twinset and Purl, I think, have that good balance. And if you want to see more of theirs, I recommend going and seeing some of Ruth's older videos. She's taken a pause from filming at the moment, but there's loads of videos to watch. And you can kind of click on one and then just assume there'll be a Twinset and Purl pattern in there for you to look at, which is always fun. So that was finished object number 1. Finished object number 2, if you've watched before, you can probably guess what this is. 1 second, the light on my TV has gone weird. Bear with. And this is another Salish Cap. This is my 4th? Is it? That feels like too many. 3rd. This is my 3rd. My 3rd Salish Cap. I say that like I'm not going to knit a 4th. I definitely am. This is a pattern by Mary Prance. It's a fingering weight held double pattern on 5mm 16-inch circular needles. Or you could knit on DPNs or magic loop, obviously. And it's just a really fun all over 2x2 ribbing pattern with a quite simple decrease in the top. I really love this. It's great for leftover yarn. This yarn is by the Cosy Bird. It's their Cosy 4-ply base in the colourways Crawley and Aziraphale, which if you watched last week's episode, you'll have seen I put this yarn into a shawl. I put it into the Daybreak by Stephen West. And I had enough left over to make one of these. So I've held it double. And it's the pattern, the yarns aren't super contrasting, so you don't get quite as much of that mild effect in this. But I think together they have blended into what is a really, really fun yarn. Let me put it on. So, like I said, it is quite warm, so it's not really hat-wearing weather. I knit these. It's such a simple pattern, and depending on the amount of yarn you had, you could quite easily turn it into a slouchier beanie. But I knit them more as a cap, because this is how I like beanies. So I knit it for about between 8 and 9 inches I go for. And I think the pattern calls for more like 10 to 11, but don't hold me to that because I might be lying to you. I might have just made that up. But I really like it. I really like these colours. And I like having like a little matching set now that's not too matchy-matchy, but I could wear this and the Daybreak and they very much go together as nice kind of, I guess kind of autumnal colours really, with the oranges in there. I think it would be nice. So maybe I'll whack this out kind of late September, early October to wear. But I don't really have a lot to say about this. I've knit 3 of those. I really like the pattern because otherwise why would I have knit 3? Really recommend, and it's quite a fun one to just have on the needles. Sometimes I just really want to knit 2x2 ribbing. So having one of the needles, I don't currently, and I almost miss it, but I don't want to cast one on yet because there's a few other projects that I want to make sure I focus on. But I actually think I might have had enough yarn left over from this project, the Simon Shawl. Did I say what the name of this pattern was? I think I did. The Simon Shawl. I think I might have enough of this to also make one of these for. So I might make my boyfriend also kind of a matching one. We will see. But like I said, I don't want to cast on one just yet because it's quite addictive. And I find that I end up just picking this up, which is why I knit this in a week. It's probably the quickest thing I knit is I can easily get through one of these in a week. I could probably get through one in a weekend, to be honest, if it's all I knit on, and I did a lot of knitting. Yeah, those are my 2 finished objects. So I'm happy with those. I'm happy that when I started this podcast a year ago, I thought that you would maybe get like 1 finished object every 3 or 4 videos. And I'm happy that it shows kind of, one, I've got faster at knitting, but I like that I have enough variation in my projects where sometimes I have something that I finish in the 2 weeks that I make these, between making these videos, and then sometimes I have some longer term projects. I think I'm really happy with the balance I found there. And also it means I'm not just constantly holding up, here's that same project that you saw 2 weeks ago, again, just with a bit more done. Because I did think, when I started, I didn't want this podcast to kind of change my knitting too much, but it has been a way I really like. It kind of just encourages me to think about my knitting in a bit more of a varied way, because I would really happily just sit and knit these all the time, and I do, having made 3 of them in probably in about 6 weeks. But then I can think of, is that going to be interesting for me to show to you? And then it makes me do something more interesting and also pushes me out of my comfort zone a little bit. I don't know where I'm going with that, but it's a fun perk of making these. Should we do whips? Let's do whips. I will start with, like I said, 3 of the 6 whips kind of grouped together. If you've watched before, you might know why. This is my, it's not my anything, it's a project bag that I made. I like it, it's a weird shape, but it's actually becoming very useful for the kinds of projects. Last year I used it in this. This is my granny wrap by Anaboos House, and that was in here last year and that was really good. And this year it's got another kind of year-long project. And I just kind of, great. It's got my dodgy bag pin from Ali over at Little Drops of Wonderful. The dodgy bag the the dodgy bag make-along is currently going on. I originally wanted to make a bag because I do have some fabric and like the stuff to make a bag, but I don't think I will. Actually, I've got a week off in a couple of weeks, so maybe I will do it then. I just don't love sewing that much. So as much as I want the end result, and I kind of like the end process, it takes a lot for me to start sewing. But I'm not here to talk about sewing. I'm here to talk about the 3 projects that are in this bag. One of the 2 year-long clubs that I'm part of this year is the Universe at Your Doorstep club by Third Volt Yarns, which is the wonderful Lola over at Third Volt Yarns. This is a yarn club inspired by a journey through space. It is running alongside a playthrough of a kind of, I guess it is a tabletop roleplay thing, but I think it might be done on a computer. And the yarns kind of follow the story of that, and it's kind of a space exploration kind of thing. You can with this club, the way that Lola does them is really fun, where they make it so you can kind of it's not just like have one skein a month, it's not a mini set. You could get a sweaters quantity a month if you wanted to. When we all signed up at the start of the year, it was kind of like which base do you want and how much do you want of it, and then you select. I've gone for 1 skein of their Caroline, I think it's Caroline, which is their DK weight. It's 115 grams in a skein, which is fun. And it's 100% superwash merino, I think. And I'm making 3 projects out of it. Project number 1 is this. This is the Third Volt, no, that was the yarn. This is the Just Feel Festive Shawl by Caleisha Ryan. This is a pattern that's originally written for an advent, and it's written for holding finger and weight held double and then using 24 colourways. The modifications I've made are, it's not held double because it's DK weight yarn, and I'm using only 12 colours, so I'm making the sections themselves twice as long, so getting bigger chunks of the colourways. So we started here, we then moved through these colourways from 2 and 3, and then colourway 4, which is the one you've not seen yet actually, because it ended up arriving the day I filmed the last video, like at the end of the day. But this is colourway 4, and I love it. I love this blue so much. I think it's so pretty. And then the green and the reds pops, especially this green, this kind of chartreusey green in there. I'm really into it at the moment for some reason. I'm not knitting much in it, and I don't have much in it, but for some reason I just constantly start thinking, I just want loads in that colour. So I might have to buy some yarn in it. I might have to make myself something in that colour. But this is the Just Feel Festive rep. So it's crocheted on the bias. It's a really straightforward pattern, granny stitch. I really like it, and it's only £1, I think, the pattern. Caleisha Ryan has a load of quite fun, quite simple but effective not granny necessarily, crochet is what I meant to say, crochet patterns like this. And I really like this one, and it's perfect for a year-long project. It's also would be perfect for an advent. There's a chance I will end up using an advent for one of these at some point, but we'll see. Because I don't need to be making 2 of these in a year. I mean, it's fun, and it will end up being quite a long wrap that I think will be fun. I'm just going to show you that yarn again. It's just, I love it so much. This blue here, I want in everything. It's so nice. This is actually, I tend to, I would normally, if you're going to buy a yarn club, like a yearly yarn club, I would normally not recommend buying one from a dye you've never experienced before. In terms of like, you've seen their colourways and maybe buy their colourways or like the bases they have. Because it's kind of a bit of a risk, because it might be that you actually don't like their dye style, or you might not like the ways they pick colours. I didn't know, I hadn't bought anything from Lola before, and I'm so surprised by how much, no, not surprised isn't the right word, but I'm really happy with how I love it. I think their dye style is really fun. It's kind of a good mixture of, you get these less variegated areas and then these really, really variegated, which is right up my street. So I'm really happy with the choice for this. So actually maybe my advice wouldn't be to maybe just go wild. Just pick a yarn. I think yarn clubs are a really fun way to experience hand-dyed yarn without feeling like you have to buy a sweaters quantity all the time, or like put too much money in, because this club is, I think, £26 a month. It's definitely less than 30, or it's like maybe exactly 30, which obviously isn't no money, but £30 a month on something that I'm going to get a year-long project out of, versus just spending £20 on a single skein that's maybe one project. And then, I don't know if that makes sense. I think yarn clubs are great, especially full skein ones. I used to do mini ones. Last year I did a lot of mini ones. This year I've been doing full skein ones, and I'm really happy with that decision. And I think I will continue that. Anyway, this is only project 1 of 3 in this bag. What I do is I knit this, no I don't, I crochet this for 14 rounds, which is the amount that I need for this pattern. I then add the yarn into this. So this is the Scattering Petals Cowl by Dana Rae Makes. This is a really, really fun cowl pattern. It's this kind of offset 2x2 ribbing, which creates what the scattering petals are. And the pattern's written more for kind of scraps. And I think I'm going to definitely make another one of these, either using minis I've got, because I've got a lot of minis, or using an advent potentially later this year. But I've done it where I've extended it, so I'm doing 2 sections in each colourway. So those are the first 3, and then this is the new one that we've added in. And I love seeing, one of the things I really like about doing this club where I'm crocheting and knitting with the same yarn, is it's really fun to see how the colourways knit versus how the colourways crochet. Because obviously we're getting much smaller specks of the colour in this because the stitches are smaller. I'm knitting this on, I think, 3.5mm, let me check. Not on that needle. No, 4mm. 4mm 16-inch circular Chalgoos. And where it's 2x2 ribbing, I obviously can't just knit on this as much as I want because I have to wait each month for the clubs to come in. But it kind of gives me the same joy as a 2x2 rib hat, but without having to just make another 2x2 rib hat. It does say to do a provisional cast on, I haven't. It's knit in the round, and then I will join at the end, and it will be like a infinity loop cowl at the end. But I'm really, really loving it. I think it's really fun. So that's project 2 from this yarn. And then project 3, this is what I just do with just however much yarn's left, because it does vary slightly because my gauge isn't always perfect. And obviously skeins aren't always the exact same weight. So whereas it might be 115, and the next one might be 114 or 117 maybe. What I then do is I'm making another granny wrap triangle. So this is a pattern by Anaboos House. It is a very straightforward, it's free on their website. I'll link it down below like I link everything in the videos. It's just a granny stitch triangle, so it will just increase out. And obviously we're starting to get smaller stripes of each colourway now. But it will turn out to be something quite scrappy and fun, but differently scrappy than my last one. So this one here is my last one. As you can see, it's very, very scrappy because it was using DK minis. So I'm getting less colours in this, so I think it's going to have a fun effect. But that's the last colourway. And then I'm going to end up with 3 projects, all with 1 yarn club, which is great. I like these projects as well because when the yarn comes in, it tends to, whenever it comes in, it tends to come in like at the end of a week. I don't know if that's purposeful, but whenever it comes in, I can get through all 3 of these projects using the yarn in a weekend. So it kind of almost, when it comes, it almost becomes that weekend project, which I like. And gives you something to look forward to. That's why I love clubs really. I love post. Like I love getting a parcel. I love post coming for me. So having a little yarn club where I know the yarn's going to come in the post is fun. I get a little parcel. So that is whip 1, 2 and 3. Let's do whip 4 though, which is just 1 whip this time. This is one you have seen before, and then my other 2 are actually new cast-ons that you've not seen before. This is the District Cowl by Max the Knitter, who is Max from Les Garçons. And here's where we're at. You can't really see a lot of progress on this. What I've done is I've added a whole new section. So from, I should put progress keepers on this really, but from there upwards is what I've added, which is kind of one of the new increase sections. So I have 1 more increase section to go, and then I need to block it, or I need to bind off, block it, and then do the fun seaming. So this is knit using a fingering weight held with a mohair. The fingering weight is a 4-ply called A Lot to Pine About by Pigment Ply, and I love it. And then the mohair, which is adding a lot of the colour that you see here, is, I think it's called Golden Hour by Dina's Home of Crafts. And I got the mohair at last year's Southern Wool Show. And I really hope that they're there again because I want to buy more of their yarn. I really love this. And it's the only, I bought a couple of minis in this mohair and I want to buy more. So it's a fun construction. What I'll do is once it's knit, because obviously I've said it's a cowl, but you can see it's flat. What happens is it kind of seams together. So it becomes a cowl at the end, which I think is a really fun construction. The way it seams together looks a bit almost like trigonometry class to me. So I do need to properly pay attention to that. But then I'm really excited to have this, and it's so soft. The mohair is making it so soft. It's my first time ever using mohair. And I do get the hype a bit. I do think, I said this before, I think a mohair is slightly overused in designs at the moment. I think it adds sometimes unnecessary cost for quite a low reward. But I think this, especially where it's variegated, so I'm getting a lot of colour out of it, I think's well worth it. And I'm having a great time. This is knit on 3.5mm Chow Goose, just obviously not circular because it's not knitting around. And it's a really simple pattern. It's just kind of simple increases with mostly garter stitch and then some purl or some stockinette detailing that you can see that makes the different like sections. I really like it. I'm really chuffed with it. I think it's a really strong pattern. Max's pattern, this is the second pattern I've made by Max now. His patterns are really, really well written. They're really easy to follow, really well thought out. So I highly recommend. And I highly recommend this as well, especially if you've got just a mohair sitting around that you don't really know what to do with. I mean, you could knit this without a mohair. It would just be kind of a looser gauge fingering. You could maybe knit it in DK actually. It might be a bit slouchy. But I think if you've got that, because I didn't buy these yarns to go together, I think it's a good stash. I mean, it's not a stash buster, it only uses 2 skeins, but it's a good way to kind of just put a mohair and a yarn together if you've just got one of each, without having to be like a larger, more thought out project. If that makes any sense. This is in one of my butternut handmade bags, actually, the first one I ever bought, which is fun. It's nice yellow, which I think goes with the project. Like I said, butternut handmade, which is available on Let's See. I really, really love their bags. I've seen that they've been going to a few more shows this year. I kind of hope that they come to the Southern Wool Show because I'd love to buy one of their bags in person. But that is whip number 4. Whip number 5 is a new cast on. So speaking of butternut handmade bags, this is one of the small bags. So this is the medium. This is the small. So this is great for a 1 skein project. This is great for, I fit a 4 skein project in here, but it's really good for like a 2 or a 3. A 4 maybe feels like it's pushing it at times. This is a fun floral pattern on this one. And speaking of yarn clubs, so like I said, I have the 3rd Volt yarn. I called that 3rd Volt Whips, but their name's not 3rd Volt Whips, it's 3rd Volt Yarns. 3rd Volt Yarns Club, which I showed you. I'm also doing another one by the Wooden Wytch. So this is their sub-club Nautical Nexus, which is 1 skein again every month. I'm getting it on DK 100% BFL. I don't know why I'm just holding up a bag, I can show you the yarn. I'm getting it on BFL DK base. And it's themed around ocean exploration is the theme. And this is colourway number 5. 4? Oh, I don't know. One sec. I guess it's May that we just had, isn't it? That's not the right bag. I think this is colourway number 5 actually. Let me get this actually because I should show you this as well. So, I think this is colourway number 5. And it's themed after, let me find a way to show you this. We're flipping over. Oh, it does not want to show you the front. What's going on? There we go. They all come with this little kind of laser etched stitch marker, and this one's themed after a little seahorse. This is super bright, super vibrant. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm actually knitting a lot of yellow at the moment. You'll see in my next project. And yellow's my favourite colour, but I don't knit with it a lot because I don't think it suits me that much. But this is really, really fun. And I'm knitting a new hat to me that was actually recommended by one of you, who I should look up to thank you, because someone gave me some really wonderful, is there a just search comments, because otherwise I might be here for a while. I don't think I'm going to be able to, oh no, there we go, search. One sec. Nick Knits, who recommended that. They actually recommended a few hat patterns. God, that was a month ago. I did reply to them though, love that for me. And they recommended the Hibernal pattern. So this is by Summer Lee, who I've never knit anything before. It's actually based off of one of their sock patterns that was quite popular, and then they turned it into a hat. What you're seeing here is just 1x1 ribbing. I've not actually got to the pattern bit yet. I've got about another inch of this 1x1 ribbing to do before I do the pattern, which is a fun kind of faux cable pattern that I'm excited to get into. Originally it seemed quite stressful to me, but now that I've looked up the technique, I actually think it's going to be quite fun and quite straightforward. This is knit on 3.25, am I making that up? No, 3.25 Shawl 16-inch circulars, which is a much tighter gauge than I'm used to for this. I usually knit a DK on either 3.5 or 3.75, so where it's 1x1 ribbing, we're getting a nice and tight gauge, which I like. It obviously has a lot of stretch to it where it is ribbing, but I'm really enjoying, I really love how this is knitting up. I love the way it's pooling with these little kind of pops of green around it, but they're not themselves forming any pattern. So you're not getting that like zigzag thing. You're just getting these little pops, almost little clouds of green. It's so fun, so vibrant. I'm excited to get onto the pattern section of this as well. The 1x1 ribbing, this is not my first, but I don't do a lot of 1x1 ribbing. I do much more 2x2. I like ribbing regardless. 1x1 though feels a lot slower. I think because you're moving the yarn every stitch, it just feels a bit slower. So I've kind of taken a bit longer on this than I thought I would. But to be fair, I only cast this on, I'm filming this on Friday the 30th. I only cast this on Sunday the 25th. So, I mean, that's only 5 days. That's not that much. And it's not really the thing I've been putting the most focus into. The thing I've been putting the most focus into, I will show you in a second. So this is the Hibernal Hat by Summer Lee. And like I said, that's Wooden Wytch. It's their BFL base, which I love. I'm really enjoying this club. I feel like I've really smashed it with the 2 clubs I picked for myself this year. Because Wooden Wytch is, I kind of followed my own advice with the Wooden Wytch. I love their yarn. I bought it a couple of times from the Southern Wool Show. So when I saw that they were doing a subscription, I could jump right in without any kind of, I love their dye style, I love their base. So this was kind of a sure bet for me, and it's paid off. Final whip before, this actually hasn't been, I mean it's 34 minutes, so, and I've not finished yet, and I do have some chatting to do after the whips. One of the things, if you've watched previously, last year, I had 5 advents in December. And one of my goals this year is to make sure I've used not every bit of yarn from those 5 advents, but to have used each advent at least once before December 1st. So before I start opening next year's advents or this year's advents, I have at least touched and used the rest. So I have done 2 projects so far. I did the one I did in December, which was the litmus cowl using Containing the Stitches yarn. I then did the, God, what did I do? I then did the, what is it called? The Tin Type by Walton using the Crafty Bird's musicals advent. I really enjoyed both those projects. And now I'm doing my 3rd one. So I think with it just about to turn June, and I'll probably finish this in June, that then gives me 5 months to solidly do 2 other advents, which I think is pretty doable. So I think I'm on track. The pattern that I'm doing with this advent, and this advent that I'm using is the Greenlambkin yarn advent, which, let me try and check, I think this will be really ratty. Apologies. This is it, but only the bit I've not used so far. It was themed after like the forest, like a magical forest at Christmas. And it was a fade. So it was a kind of rainbow fade. And I wasn't expecting a fade, and I didn't originally know what to do with a fade, but then I found a pattern called the Brilliant Brickwork by Amy Crumpton. And I love it, and I'm knitting that. So here's where we're at with it. So, oh, that's attached to where I've put the stitches on hold. This is the start of it. What this is it's a modular pattern where you're kind of making these bricks, hence the brilliant brickwork, using each colour. So you cast on at the bottom, and I'm using the contrast colour I'm using is Drops Flora, which is a 65% wool, 35% alpaca. And I'm using, this is colourway 30, I'm just saying words, colourway 22. It's kind of a very, like, almost undyed yarn. I have loads of this. Oh, I'm just throwing it around. I have loads of this because I bought it for another project last year, and then I ended up not making that project. So I'm happy to have a use for it. And I spoke a bit last week about not originally, because I class hand-dyed yarn as being like special yarn, and commercial yarn as being less special yarn, which I think is silly, but it's just kind of how my head works. Originally I didn't want to use, my camera's starting to overheat, but it's fine. Originally I didn't want to use a commercial yarn with hand-dyed, but actually it's knitting up great, and it's made me realise that I'm silly for thinking that, because it knits up really, really nicely. I've done the first 5 days of this. So like I said, we started at the bottom and then you work your way up, then we go over here, now we're up here. I've not wound up the next colourways. What you do is you make one of these sides, which will have 11 colourways in total. You then make another one of these, where it's kind of a triangle with a flat bottom, I suppose a pyramid. And then using the other, or using the last 11 colourways, then you make 2 triangles to join them together and you end up with like a rectangle wrap. What I'll actually do is I'll put a picture in here so you can see what it's going to be. And then this is like the start of mine. I'm really enjoying knitting this. The modular nature of it at first stressed me out a bit because I don't have a lot of experience with picking up stitches. But it's actually been fine, and it's kind of made me realise that I can do things that I've never done before, which I like. And it's kind of why I like to knit, because I like learning new things. So at the moment, these stitches are on hold, which I've just put on some waste yarn. Originally, I was putting them on a cable for interchangeable needles, but I found it too heavy and I felt like it was stretching out my needles or my stitches. So I've just put that on some waste yarn. And I'm really enjoying this. And like I said, I only cast this on last Sunday. It came together really quickly. So I think this will also be quite a quick use for a yarn advent, which isn't necessarily the goal. I'm not trying to speed through it, but it's nice to finish things at the same time. And then this is what I've got left of those first 5 colourways. It's using probably about half of each colourway. I've not properly weighed it, but I think I'm using about probably 8 to 10 grams of each colourway, which means I'm going to end up with another advent basically left to use, which keeps happening. I've basically used about half of all of my advents, which means even when I finish all 5 advents, I might end up with the same yarn again, which I need to think about. I need to work out whether I want to throw them into like a blanket and make like a long-term scrappy blanket, or think of other projects for them individually. But I'm really enjoying this. I'm knitting it on, what am I knitting on? 3.5mm Leica needles. I like these. They aren't my interchangeables. I didn't want an interchangeable set, just to kind of, like I said, once I realised that the cables were weighing it down, I thought I'll just use a non-interchangeable and just keep going with the same set of needles. And this is it so far. I really like it. And like I said with the yellows, again, I don't knit a lot of yellows, but I love these colourways. This yarn is actually, I don't think it's showing up properly on camera. You can kind of see it a little bit, I think. This yarn is actually a sparkle yarn as well, which I also don't use very often, but I really like the way it's working up. So this might end up being a gift for someone, to be honest. But I also like this, because it's going to be a rainbow, I like that this will be my pride project. So it feels appropriate for the time of year, it feels seasonally relevant. And this is living in my Pigment and Ply bag that I got with their 2023 advent, which is a kind of velvet drawstring bag with a pattern that they design on it, and it's really, really pretty. And because this came with an advent, I kind of use it for my advents. So I've done, I think all of my advent projects have been in this, actually. That might not be true, but the last 2 definitely have. And I've only done 3, so that probably is true, actually. Love that. And that is the last of my whips. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the camera off to allow it to cool down because it does look like it's overheating. And then I'll come back and I've got a few other things. I've got some new yarn to show you and I've got a couple of other things to talk to you about. So I will be back in a bit. It'll be like a second view. I'm going to edit this bit out. I think my camera's cooled down a little bit so we can carry on. What was I think I just finished whips, hadn't I? Yes. So, one thing that I want, actually, let me do new yarn first, and then I actually have like an app that I've been using recently that I'd like to recommend. It's not sponsored, obviously, but it's really kind of like changed my knitting game that I thought I'd share with you because I've really been enjoying it. And then I'll talk about some books, and then we're done for the week. So, probably about 2 months ago, no, less than that actually, I think maybe only 5 weeks ago, the Crafty Bird opened up. Let me take it out of the plastic actually. So, I don't really know what I put in here to be honest. So, one sec. The Crafty Bird did a pre-order for their Fourth Wing collection. Fourth Wing is a book series that I've never read before and kind of hadn't really heard about before until a book came out this year that was, I think, the fourth in the series and everyone was excited about. I've never heard about it, I've never read it. I might read it one day, but it doesn't seem like my kind of thing. However, I love the Crafty Bird and their yarn is definitely my kind of thing. So I bought some yarn from them. I bought 4 skeins, all on their Cosy DK base because I love their Cosy DK base. The first 2 skeins I bought are both in the same colourway, which is called We Have Dragons to Ride. As far as I'm aware, that there's a lot of dragons in Fourth Wing. And I'm obsessed with this yarn. I think it's so pretty. I don't have a project in mind for this. There's something about a kind of neutral base with speckles of colour that really always does it for me. So I'm super, super into this. And I bought 2 skeins just so that I knew I'd have enough for something. Kind of 2 skein DK project at some point. Probably, I think where the speckles, where it's obviously this neutral with speckles, I think there's something with texture might look quite fun in this. But I will need to look up some patterns and I have other yarn to go through that's kind of more in my plans at the moment. So this might sit in the stash for a little while, but I'm excited about it nonetheless. It's really, really pretty. It's just nice to look at, so it'll be a shame when it goes away in my stash. The next yarn I have bought actually with a pattern in mind. So let me, first of all, I've completely forgotten the name of the pattern. But also, round of applause for me for buying yarn specifically for a pattern. I have knit a few and enjoy Andrea Mowry's bandana style cowls. I've done 2 shift cowls and one of the traveller cowls. And I really enjoy them. I really enjoy the construction and I really enjoy the shape and the wearing of them. There was one called the Night and Day Cowl, which I will put a picture up here. It's the same shape. This time though it's knit in DK weight yarn. Yeah, it's knit in DK weight yarn. And it uses about 90 grams of each colour, but we'll see how my gauge works out. And I'm going to use these 2 colourways for mine. So as you can see, it's kind of almost a checkerboard effect. The first colourway that I've bought is called Green Clubtail, which I'm assuming is maybe a dragon. And it's this really nice green that I really like. Is that going to focus on the yarn? There we go. Really, really lovely green. And then the second colourway I bought is called Andana Feathertail, which maybe is also a dragon, I don't know. And it's this really, really fun yellow. It's not quite as bright as that, as the camera's making it out actually. It's actually, if I hold them next to each other, the camera might pick up. It's a little bit more muted than that, but it is still a yellow. I really like yellow and green together. I think they're a fun, quite autumnal combination. So I'm excited to put these together. This is actually probably going to be a relatively soon cast on because I've wanted to make this cowl for a while. And now I have the yarn to make it, so we'll see. It's not, might have cast on by the next time I make a video, but we'll see. I'm excited about that. So those are the 4 skeins that I got from the Crafty Bird. Really, really enjoyed. The pre-order, I think, is still live. The way the Crafty Bird, oh, I'm just dropping yarn. The way the Crafty Bird does their pre-orders, they do them quite long term as die to order pre-orders. So, and then they die in batches. So you'll probably be able to get it most of the summer. and I highly recommend it. There's loads of variegated colours in it. There's also a really fun selection of tonals in this collection. I almost bought the mini set, because I normally do buy the mini set, to go in my granny square blanket that I'm making, like the long-term granny square. I decided not to, because when the pre-order came up, I was in the midst of crocheting 24 granny squares for that blanket using the advent I had from them. And I think at some point I need the blanket to not be like 50% the Crafty Bird yarn. So I turned down that, which I think was good of me, to kind of maybe have less middies. But I'm excited for these yarns that I bought. I think that's really fun. So that's all the yarn I bought. Well, I suppose 2 other skeins have come in, but they are the 2 that I've shown you. So obviously that 3rd Volt yarn one came in, and the, what was the other one? The Wooden Wytch one also came in. So shall I talk a bit about an app? What I'm going to do is I'm going to record my screen, and I'm going to put a video in. Is that recording? Oh, I feel like maybe I can't. Hold on. Let me see if this is even recording, because it may well not be. Oh no, it is. It just didn't have the thing up. Let me start that again then. So I have found one thing I do a lot is I will use patterns on my phone to kind of, is the way to follow patterns. Sometimes I do it on my laptop. I don't really print out patterns, even though sometimes I wish I had, but I don't have a printer is the main reason I don't print out patterns. But I tend to follow them on my phone, just as like PDFs. One thing though, I find sometimes it's hard, because obviously your phone turns off, like after a while, the screen's not just on all the time, but also sometimes your, the PDF reader on a phone isn't great. So, and also, 3rd thing, the thing that I originally wanted to look up was I use this for a stitch marker, for a stitch counter. It's like one of those little, is this counting anything? I don't think so. It's like one of those things that people use to like count people in a queue. I really like this. I like using it as a stitch counter, but I can only keep one project on the stitch counter at a time. So there is an app called My Row Counter, which I believe has a Android and iOS version. And what it is you can kind of, I don't want to create a pattern, that's not what I meant to do, is I'm kind of like, you're going to be able to see what's on my phone, but obviously that's not happening currently, so I'm having to imagine it. What it is it lets you create projects within the app that lets you then like keep track of separate stitch counters while also having the PDF in the app. So if I open up the Brilliant Brickwork, I won't show you the pattern because obviously it's a paid pattern, but it's fine to show you this front page. So what you can do is you can have the pattern open and you can put it in the PDF. You can also actually there you go. You can draw on the pattern if you need to. So if you need to highlight things, which is really, really helpful, stop doing that. You can also annotate and write notes on it for the pattern if you want to like remember something. I'll need to rub that out, otherwise I'll be confused. You can obviously zoom in and all of that. The thing that I really like though is you can have counters for the projects. So whatever I was doing for the last one, I got up to round 4 on this. And you can obviously just tap to increase the stitch count. One thing that I really like though is if you tap on settings down at the bottom, you can also add a secondary counter. So this might be, for example, your repeats, right? So then if you go back to the actual counter, you then have 2 counters. So you can say you have a pattern that has repeat rows 1 to 20 10 times. You can count rows 1 to 20. I've linked them, which is not, I wasn't meant to do, but there we go. So you can have rows 1 to 20, but then when you get up to it, you can then say, right, I've done the repeat once, and then go back down to 0 and do that, which I think is really great. I think it's a really fun, I mean, it's not that fun, it's counting, but it's a really good way of keeping track. And it means I can keep it on my phone. And also one thing that I like, my battery on my phone doesn't like, is because this is a separate app and not just the normal PDF viewer, it keeps it open as though you're watching a video almost. So if you're in a bit where you need to keep referring back to the pattern, it will keep it open on your screen rather than it closing down. You have to keep going back into your phone and then like find the bit of the pattern. So I really enjoy it. I think it's really, really great. And that's everything really. That's kind of what I'm going to show you. It's kind of, at first I bought it. I'm paying for that. There is a free version and then you can pay for it as well. I think the paid for does limit, so I think, but it's like £9 a year. It's not like a super expensive subscription. And I'm really enjoying it. And then if I come up here, I've got all the projects that I'm working on. I obviously finished the Simon Shawl, but I have the 3 projects I'm on, and then I'm able to keep track of the stitch counters for all of those things. It does also let you kind of keep track of things, like things you've completed. There is a level system, but I haven't made an account on it because I didn't want it to email me. So, but I might make an account, and then there might be more that's in it as well. But I highly recommend, and it's just called My Stitch Counter. Or my, what's it called? My row counter. Is that what it's called? I don't know how to find the name of the app. My row counter. Which is kind of unassuming because I don't think you'd think it does all that by an app called just My Row Counter. But it does a lot more than just count rows, which I really enjoy. So that was the app that I want to talk to you about. Shall I talk about books a little bit? Is that everything that I have to talk about? Yeah. So if you're just interested in the knitting, then thanks for watching. You can, I was about to say something that sounded quite rude. I was about to say you can go now. But if you're not interested in books or anything like that, then I will see you next in a couple of weeks. If you've enjoyed this video, a like would be great. Subscribing would be wonderful. But I will see you in the next video. If you are interested in what I've been reading though, I finished a book called Henry, which I was reading the last time I filmed. So I'll put a picture up here. It is a retelling of Henry V by Shakespeare, but in a modern day setting. And I've never read Henry V by Shakespeare, but I don't think it's just a retelling. I think it's like the basics of the story, but then with a whole new story put on top. It follows the story of a guy called Henry, who was called Hal in the book, because it's one of those things where like the posh people do. I suppose not only posh people do, but you know when people like, all the men in a family all have the same name. It's one of those situations. So the main character goes by Hal. He is a heir to he's like the next in line to be the Duke of Lancaster, which if you're not in the UK might sound random. In the UK, we obviously have the royal family, which is its own thing. And then we have lineages of just kind of, some people are dukes. So it's like, there's just a guy who's currently the Duke of Lancaster. And then when he dies, his son will be the Duke of Lancaster. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just kind of, they're posh is basically what it means, and they like live in big houses. So his dad is currently the Duke of Lancaster. It might not be Lancaster. I think it is. His dad is currently the Duke. He's the next in line. He's like in his early 20s, and it's about him kind of like, he's a bit of a mess. He's kind of like one of those rebellious rich kids, but it's got a lot more to him. I think he's a really interesting character. I think it's a really, really great book, actually. I gave it 4.25 stars, so 9.5 out of 10. The main thing that made it not a 5-star for me was, is that 4 point, no, that's not how that works, is it? A 4.5 would be 9, so 4.25 is 8.5, isn't it? Yes. I can do maths. So the reason it was an 8.5 was really good story, really good characters, really enjoyed myself. It kind of went on a little bit at times. There were some passages that I felt could have been a bit more condensed. And I like drawn out explanations of things. I like kind of quite wordy books. But there were some bits where I was just like, nothing's happening right now. But there were also some chapters that were just really, really engaging and really, really wonderful. So I would highly recommend it. It's quite like a raw book. Like there's a lot, it doesn't like hide anything. There's a lot of things. So I would read the trigger warnings beforehand because there might be some things you do not enjoy from it. But overall, really, really good book. The book I'm currently reading is called The Only Light Left Burning by Eric J. Brown. This is a sequel to All That's Left in the World that I read end of last year or start of this year. I've read it because I'm reading the second one, obviously. This is a book set in a post-apocalyptic America, following these two boys who, book one follows them as they kind of go on a journey from one, actually I don't want to spoil it too much. They go on a journey, it happens quite early in the book. And it's about their kind of relationship together, but also the way the world is and like the people they meet and kind of the way the world's rebuilding itself after what is a kind of, they call it the superflu in the book. Book 2 is kind of following on from them, and it's showing kind of more details of their relationship and kind of some other trials and kind of tribulations that are happening going from them. I'm about halfway through it currently. I'm really, really enjoying it. It's a quite fast-paced book, which after the Henry, I'm enjoying. The extra characters that we're kind of getting a bit more time with are all quite fun. They've kind of added in some interesting other characters, and I'm enjoying it. It's one of those books, though, I do a thing where I don't like, there's certain tropes in movies and books and things that I don't like. One trope I hate is apocalypse happens, and then obviously the danger is the apocalypse. So say, for example, it's zombies, and like you obviously don't want to be killed by the zombies. I hate the trope of then also finding the bad humans. For some reason, it really annoys me. I just don't, there aren't zombies in this book, but there is a level of bad humans, not just the fact that I think like most of the world died, right? And I just find that, so I'm on edge a little bit to see how, because it played in a bit in the book 1, but not too much, thankfully. But I'm on edge to see if that happens in book 2, because I just really don't enjoy that kind of, I don't enjoy stories that frustrate me, if that makes sense. I don't want to be frustrated by something I'm reading. I want to be, I don't mind being sad, I don't mind being happy, I don't mind laughing or being like angry about things. Frustration though, I never want from a book. I don't like being frustrated. Sometimes I have frustration dreams where like the whole dream will be just something really frustrating happens. It will be like a dream where I really need to get somewhere for something really important, but I'm at home and I can't find my keys. And like, it will just be like a dream that obviously feels like it goes on forever, where I'm just like, it's just, everything's going wrong. And I just wake up feeling like frustrated from it. And I hate that feeling from anything else as well. So I'm a bit cautious that that's about to happen. But really enjoyed the first one, highly recommend that. And I'm enjoying the second one currently. That's everything I've been reading. Have I been watching anything fun? The finale of Doctor Who's this week, which I'm enjoying. But I've not watched it yet because it's tomorrow at the time of filming, so I can't give you any thoughts on that. And I'm watching a lot of RuPaul's Drag Race, as always. All Stars 10 is on the moment, and I'm loving it. It's a really, really strong season. They've kind of changed the format, so it's like stronger than the previous All Stars have been. So I'm really enjoying that. But if you're still here, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to me go on about knitting and crochet and then some books. I am off work the week after next. So the week that the next video gets posted, I'm off work, which is irrelevant to you because we don't live together, nor do we work together. I hope. I don't think any of the people that I work with watch this. But it might mean, and I've been saying this for a while, I might have time in that week to maybe film a slightly different video and kind of have an extra video. Although the next video you see will definitely still be the next podcast, but then the week after there might be something else. I'm going to try and plan it out and make sure I've kind of got the time set aside to do that. While I've got kind of a free couple of days, but we'll see how that goes. I'm not going to promise because who knows what will actually happen. But that's everything from me. So if you're still watching, thank you. If you're not subscribed, subscribing would be wonderful. Give the video a like if you've enjoyed it. Leave me a comment. I promise I'll try and reply in less than 2 weeks this time. And if not, I hope you have a great couple of weeks and I will see you at the other end of them. Thanks. Bye.